Hi folks, Bruce McDonald, the Talamanca Review. How are you doing today? We're going to do a podcast is what we're going to do. And today I just want to walk through a relatively long piece of street journalism, as I guess what the kids would call it these days. That's where people with no agenda, no credentials, no news agency affiliation, just go out and film a place and show you what's really going on there. Now, I'm sure you've all seen these things before, so you may say to yourself, well, why are you even doing this, Bruce? Well, I think it's productive for us to walk through it together and ask some questions aloud and answer those questions aloud, to try to figure out what is going on here. Because, I started to notice this. When were the California fires? You know, when they had the forest fires in California. I think they were like 2017. No. Yeah, they were about 2017. Yeah, quite a while ago, about 7 years ago. And then we had a repeat of the events and the phenomenon in Hawaii. And what's interesting about the time we live in is they don't even hide the evidence anymore. Okay. So everybody's got like what I would call, their litmus test, their examination of a circumstance and their reason for evaluating a circumstance to be, dire. And I think the circumstance that we're living in now in the West is quite dire. And the reason is we're not getting any truth anymore. Okay? You may say it's always been this way. You could perhaps say that I made the same thesis in The Devil in Us, that it's been this way since World War II, and that's true. But it wasn't as all-pervasive as it is now. Beginning after World War II, it's not so much that they lied to us. It's more that there were certain things they didn't tell us. Okay? And they didn't tell us about what happened in World War II. They didn't tell us how that war was a dimensional watershed. How we broke occult boundaries and started interacting with entities and beings not of the earth. Ergo, extra, more than, terrestrial, earth, more than the earth. We started interacting with entities and beings that were not of the earth. And they told us indirectly. The Day the Earth Stood Still, they made a remake of that with Keanu Reeves. Great movie. Lot being said in that movie. And then we just sort of get the rise of science fiction after that. We get Star Trek in the 60s. But it's really kind of astounding the speed with which science fiction came into the world. Before The Day the Earth Stood Still, there was nothing like that. There was Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And then he did another book called Journey to the Center of the Earth. That was Jules Verne. And Jules Verne was French, and he was, I guess you could say, a futurist. Over on the American side, away from Europe, an early foreshadowing of what was to come might be found, some might say, in the works of H.P. Lovecraft, the Rhode Island writer who wrote macabre tales of bizarre entities and beings bizarre entities and beings straight out of occult manuals. So they didn't tell us things. But now they lie. Now they lie about everything. And they don't even lie that much. They just say, basically, if you're listening and looking correctly, basically what they're saying is, this is the story we're going with. You see how you do questioning this in public. We don't really care if you get that many people to believe you. We know there's huge holes in our narrative. We know we can't explain why aluminum hubs, wheel hubs, are melted in the California fires, and 15 yards away there's a brown-green spruce tree that didn't go up even though it's highly combustible. Yet the heat was great enough that the aluminum wheel rim could melt. They're just showing you. This is what I mean by lying now. And yet there's people who are just sort of sitting around going, oh, it'll all get worked out, don't worry about it. Some hero is going to come in and save this. And there you go. That's how you set up the Donald and Chabad. See an opportunity, meet it. Make friends and influence people. Anyways, I suppose that's enough of an intro. Let's get on to this because it's worth taking a look at. Maybe I should get my headset on first so I don't get an echo or anything like that as I comment on this thing. Yeah, hope you folks are doing well today. And I hope everything is going well with you today. But yeah, that's the thing I noticed the most is that, yeah, there we go. They don't even try to hide it. And holy cow, when you think about the ramifications about it now, okay? When you distill everything down to its moral center now, like what a person is doing, what the moral effect of it is, what the moral position of it is, whether it infringes upon the basic dignity and sovereignty of a living, sentient human being. All of these sorts of calculations, when you apply them to almost any job out there now, the picture the people have in their head of their value to society is greatly out of alignment with what their real value to society is. Policing, nursing, medicine. Oh, we're great guys. I save lives. Really? Really, you save lives. You're still going with that story. The whole thing is falling apart and nobody can think about what to do. All right, let's get on this.
Steal from my store! Recent violent attacks in Santa Monica and a growing homeless population have shaken neighbors and businesses.
A series of high-profile crimes over the past several weeks became part of a showdown between the city and businesses as to whether this sign is true.
Immediately called the police around 2 a.m. and they showed up around 4 a.m.
The system's broken. Nothing is being done about it.
So this is Santa Monica. It's the city I grew up in. It's where I spent most of my time as a teenager, and it's even where I bought a house on the same street it grew up on before moving to Las Vegas. But as you're about to see...
Now, I just want to point out, you could do this to almost any city now. Any city. I think maybe there might be an exception for capital cities, because with all of the federally employed people and the guaranteed income, you're going to have a continuity of the secondary and tertiary economies. Secondary economy, the primary economy is federal government in Ottawa. Secondary economies would be things like office space rental. So when you look at all of the office space rentals that are vacant now, and this is epidemic in North American cities, folks, you need to understand this because somebody is taking a huge bath on this. And you got to wonder Who could that be, right? Who's taking the bath? Taking a bath means massive losses, okay? Massive losses. So there are high percentages in some cities, up to 30, 40, 50% of commercial real estate is vacant now. Cities like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, New York, Los Angeles, Santa Monica. This is epidemic through the West now. Now, you have to understand that your commercial real estate base is one of the foundations of your economy, because that's a good, steady, and stable tax revenue for the municipal government in the form of property taxes, the office buildings. So the person renting the building collects the taxes for the municipality, turns them over, and the municipality has all of this revenue to work with. Hey, Mike. Yeah, the LA Olympics are going to be epic, yeah. Greetings, Polly. So commercial real estate is the bedrock of the municipal economy. So then you got to ask if all of that property is vacant, because remember, it's not just the private sector that suffers when people aren't spending money. It's not just the businesses, it's also government, because government has only one form of revenue, and that's taxation. And taxation takes place upon viable economic activity in the private sector. And you should be starting to see the scope of the collapse now. Now, there are a number of oddities at play here if you understand economics. Number one, pricing and valuation. Why, with a 40% vacancy rate, have the prices to rent the buildings not plummeted? Why have prices not plummeted? Why is it still so expensive to buy a home in Canada or the United States? If this whole system is supply and demand is non-existent, that means there's an abundance of supply, and in an abundance of supply, you have continually collapsing prices, but that's not happening. But perhaps I'm talking too much and not letting our friend in this video talk.
Thriving, vibrant culture and economy is now a barren wasteland of empty buildings and crime. And apparently it's gotten so bad in recent months that I didn't even believe it myself until I saw what I'm about to show you. Even though this is going to be unlike any other video I've ever done, I'm going to walk you through the city firsthand, share what it used to be like from someone who lived here, speak with the locals to see what they think about the recent events, and then I'll leave it up to you to come to your own conclusions. I'd also like to thank German in Venice for bringing this to my attention, because before I saw his video, I had no idea just how bad things had gotten. Now, for those unaware, behind me is the 3rd Street Promenade. Think of this like the major business hub of Santa Monica, home to some of the now most expensive real estate in the country. But it wasn't always like that. Surprisingly, today, Santa Monica is safer than just 2% of US cities. It's ranked one of the top 10 most dangerous places in the United States, and your chances of being victim of a crime here are nearly 1 in 100. So this used to be Crepe Cafe.
Okay, that's got to be spoken about, the rising danger of formerly safe cities. Okay? So there you're starting to see the scope of the economic collapse. Okay? The police are paid. No pay, no police. The pay for the police comes out of the municipal treasury. State police are paid out of the state treasury. But state police just handle crime in between municipalities, or that overlap municipalities, and which are part of the state's suite of jurisdictions. But municipal police, they get their funding from the municipality. They get their money from City Hall. The municipality is the building block of the Western world. No municipalities, no states or provinces. No states or provinces, no federal union. Pretty easy to understand, right? It's not rocket science. You don't need a graduate degree in international affairs. You don't need a PhD in political science. It's friggin' common sense. It's the principle of an ecosystem. Pond, insect, frog, snake, an ecosystem applied to a man-made construct. But man-made construct... So this is a perfect time to explain and to illustrate and to illuminate what people mean when they talk about natural law, divine law, universal law. It means it's a principle so embedded in the system here that it's a spiritual principle, and if violated will produce severe consequences. Earlier civilizations, in fact all of them, including Aboriginal, wrote all of these things down in moral codes. But nobody follows those anymore. Silly gooses. You can chop your dick off now and be a girl. Or sew a dick on and be a boy. Silly gooses. There's no natural law. We are whatever we think we are. So the natural law here is the law of the ecosystem. That things have to be in a symbiotic relationship. They have to be exchanging things. Okay, this isn't just an economic principle, it's a life principle. We know when people hear this stuff, they think, oh, listen to Bruce. He sounds like one of those 18th century capital philosophers. But remember, a lot of the stuff they got right. They got it right. Okay, as measured against universal law. When you look at communism as an ideology, it is basically a massive subversion of natural law that, if applied to people over a long period of time, would begin to create neuroses at first and then psychoses after that. It's the logical consequence of living outside of natural law, because natural law and living in natural law is the rebasement and repriming of your perception on a moment-by-moment basis. It's like the bass line. It's like the treble in the music. Okay? It keeps the whole beat going. You lose it, you lose a lot. It's not a small thing. So Santa Monica has lost its ecosystem. So why is it so dangerous now? Well, there's no cops. Why are there no cops? There's no tax revenue to pay a police service. All right, I'm talking too much. Let's get back to Gumby here.
Remember, this place would always be packed on the weekends. On weekdays, there'd always be people out front eating food. You can see now that they closed down. And then over here, right across the street, this building used to be my bank. This used to be HSBC, and they shut down when COVID happened. They turned down a lot of their offices, but this all used to be really popular lease space that also is vacant right now. So we're not even about 50 feet away from that, and we have 3 more vacancies here. This used to be a Hollister. We have another vacancy next door to it, and then another vacancy across the street. So it seems like a lot of these businesses have shut down. We also have another right here that I just missed that's for lease. What's kind of remarkable is that 40% of the 3rd Street Promenade right now is vacant. 40%.
There's that magic number I was telling you about. So 40%. Okay, that's a lot of money, folks. Okay, so if the rent there is $30,000 a month, what do you think the taxes are? Probably about 15% of that at least. So that's $5,000 a month. That's one business, 1,500 square feet, $5,000 a month. That's somebody's salary. Okay? That's a private first class in the police service, a trainee. Okay? 40% of the business is shut down, and this is happening everywhere in North America now. Okay? Everywhere in North America, this is happening. I must say, looking at it from the outside in, I have what I would call a grudging respect for the engineering of it and for the deftness of it. It's a very deft operation. I mean, basically, they're murdering you in broad daylight and nobody is even seeing it. Okay? No, I mean, people are starting to see it now, but is it too late now? I don't know. But they're just doing this all out in the open. Right? You got to save yourself at this point, folks. You got to save yourself. You understand? You got to save yourself. Yeah, you got to save yourself. There's no other choice. 40% of the businesses are gone. Let's get back.
All of this space right now is completely empty and I can't lease it. I also used to remember for the longest time there used to be street performers here and now it's quite empty. Hold on. I mean, this is what it's turned into. How has this been normalized? Think of what this does, though, for businesses. Like, no one wants to open up here. People don't feel safe here. If you're just walking down the street and some guy comes up and is shouting in your face and wants to fight you. And then right behind, of course, we have the infamous Apple Store. This was also turned recently into a public safety kiosk. Again, in one of the most expensive areas in the entire country. And you have a public safety kiosk just because of how many incidents they have around here. You know, truth be told, I actually don't know what a public safety kiosk is. Should we ask? Hey, hi. I'm curious. What is a public safety kiosk? I grew up here and I don't.
This.
What
it's
is?
Just basically like a substation, or people have questions, or something happens.
The owner says a similar smash and grab happened in February. Other stores along the promenade, like Lids, tell Eyewitness News they've been victims of the same crime, even though a Santa Monica Police Department public safety kiosk is right in front of the store.
Now, I will say there's one store that has been here ever since I was a kid. In the 90s, was Puzzle Zoo. At one point, they occupied both stores, but they had to downsize, so now they're taking.
So, constantly being robbed would be another incentive to shut your store down. Lack of traffic, lack of sales, and then being robbed. Now, this is Santa Monica, folks. This is a city, a municipality that 5-7 years ago nobody would have dreamed could experience any economic hardship. Santa Monica, ladies and gentlemen. Santa Monica used to be one of the most desirable zip codes to live in the United States. Schools, hospitals, shopping, lifestyle, weather, beaches. Santa Monica, California. Okay? It was the dope, man. It was like the A-level California. It was the Duke. It was the A number one, man. It was the Duke of New York. And how it fell so quickly, and strategically, and this is why I use the word engineering. You see, it's not easy to do this. People are extremely adaptable in every way. Our bodies can adapt to situations, and we just keep living. You know, if you've ever been into one of these mega cities like Mexico City or New Delhi, the denizens of those cities, they just adapt to the pollution level and they just keep living, and their bodies adapt. They learn how to repel certain things. You wake up with big pus balls in the corner of your eyes every morning because your eyes are getting all the toxins out. That's what it's like to live in New Delhi, right? But this is brilliantly engineered. This is like the 9/11 towers coming down, the Twin Towers, ergo the World Trade Towers. Okay, this is a controlled demolition. They're doing it in stages. Boom, 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 boom. And then you blink and the whole thing is gone. It collapsed. They can do that with conceptual things too. It's not just literal engineering like the Twin Towers. They can come up with a plan to detonate and demolish, a 12, 20, 30 block area like this quite easily, and they've done it. And it starts with COVID. This is where it all started. Okay? And when you start to put it all together, that all of this has been done intentionally. This is a carefully executed plan. Okay? There's nothing random about this. This decay and decomposition of our societies is a planned obsolescence. It's engineered. Charges were put in place. They were timed. They were detonated. We're living with the consequences. Now, the next big thing is going to be the dollar detonation. So it's happening at a street level already. And again, I was reading in the comments that, BB, I didn't know that you lived in London, Ontario. I actually lived in Waterloo for quite a while, but never London. But she says it's the same thing there, and London, Ontario is not a big city. Not a big city at all, actually. I think it's happening in Ottawa. It's happening everywhere, folks. It's terrifying. It's frightening for people, especially people with young children. Terrifying, frightening. May God be with them. May they have all the luck and all the wind to fill their sails. Okay? It's one thing for an old dude like me with adult children to get taken out. That's no big deal. I could go any day now. Most of my good work's done, the books and everything, raising my son. I could go any day now. It's the young people who got to make it in this shit show that I feel for. I really do. Right? And I think all of you listening to me who have children of your own, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How the hell did we leave this shit show to our children, man? I'm ashamed. All right, enough soliloquizing, Bruce, you jackass. Put the video back on.
The other half is taken up by Lids, but that store has somehow survived for probably about almost 40 years now, even though across the street you have 2 more vacancies here. I also got to say it's quite remarkable when you compare how it used to look like back in 2018, because you could go back on Google Street View and see precisely what was here, how many people were here, and then you see the change. Oh, this is a fun one. So this is now for lease. Guess how much they're asking for this? It's 1,500 square feet. It's on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and 3rd Street, so it's like a kind of prime location. They're asking $30,000 a month. So just think about that. If you're a small business, you're probably spending $30,000 a month in rent, then another $30,000 a month in overhead costs. So just to break even every month, you need to bring in $60,000.
No, this is worth going over. Okay. And what it shows you basically is the interdependence of the economy at this point. It's a very interesting point we're witnessing here, okay? So why would it be that expensive to rent a 1,500 square foot restaurant place? Okay, 1,500 square feet's not that big, folks. Now, it would be maybe a big apartment in a small house. Okay, but for a business, it's not that big. Okay, $30,000 a month they're paying for that business. Nobody will rent it. Why? But you heard what he said about the taxes and everything then too. It's another $30,000. Let's listen to that again. Hang on a sec.
I don't get how any company could survive here unless it's a loss leader, unless you just people were here and then you see the change. Oh, this is a fun one. So this is now for lease. Guess how much they're asking for this? It's 1,500 square feet. It's on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and 3rd Street, so it's like a kind of prime location. They're asking $30,000 a month. So just think about that. If you're a small business, you're probably spending $30,000 a month in rent, then another $30,000 a month in overhead costs. So just to break even every month, you need to bring in $60,000.
Yeah, he says it's overhead costs. He's not just, it's not tax per se. That would be a part of it, but that would be overhead costs. So you would need to be bringing in $60,000 a month just to break even. It's unbelievable. And if there's no traffic on the street, how are you going to do it? This is the thing about a free market, is that all of these sort of symbiotic relationships crept up to make all of these exchanges happen and to sustain this economy for years and decades. And a few things in the mix change, and it's incredible. There's almost an organic quality to it, like how long would it take for the leaves on a plant to start turning brown if they didn't get water, right? How long in this man-made ecosystem, Santa Monica, with its businesses, its taxes, how long would it take for the leaves on these businesses to turn brown? And when they turn brown, can they come back? It's fascinating, actually, the interlinkedness of the whole thing. I find it absolutely fascinating. Now, of course, one of the reasons that they're highlighting all this and deliberately breaking it is they want to suggest to us that free-form, man-made, cooperative economies don't exist anymore. This is another thing that has to go away, right? With your rights. Like everything else that's going away, this has to go away now too. Your freedom to assembly and your freedom to form an economy. It's just too dangerous now. What with the COVID and the monkeypox, we need a more equitable system. You see? So that it's already coming in, the communist system. If the United States doesn't get reprimed with capital, with motivated lenders to get out there and start businesses and basically perform emergency CPR, I don't even know if it all can be saved now. Okay, I think a lot of these liberal districts are finished. Like I don't know what kind of overhaul and injection of capital you would need to revitalize San Francisco now. And not just for the tech executives, but for everybody, to make it a viable city the way it was in 1950. How much money would you have to inject? It's an interesting question. I don't know. Let's get back to our friend here.
I don't get how any company could survive here unless it's a loss leader, unless you just put your business here for the exposure and then you lose money on it. It doesn't make any sense. So we're about to cross the street. This entire building used to be the Gap. They rented out all 4 stories and they extended through the end of the street. This has been empty for a very, very, very long time. I believe they closed down during COVID and they decided it just wasn't worth it anymore to stay in business here. I believe shoplifting took a hit on them, but also just they weren't getting as many sales in person, and with the state of how the promenade is, it makes sense. Why put a store here? Why pay the rent when it's just not making any money? This also used to be a really popular restaurant. It looks like they've closed down, and whoever the new owner is, or maybe it's the existing owner, decided to renovate it completely, so it'll be interesting to see what this becomes. I'm also really uneasy about recording in public, so I'm doing my best. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you appreciate me going outside of my comfort zone for this, I really don't like it. You can see there's people all around, and I'm terrified inside, but I'm doing it for you. So this used to be a lot more prevalent in Santa Monica with street performers. People would really come from around the country to be able to perform on these streets and perform in front of a crowd. But now it's incredibly empty. Like, this is the first person that we've seen in a block and a half who's performing. It's pretty sad to see the state that Santa Monica's become. So what's really interesting is that we've spoken to a few business owners and people who work here, and not a single person wants to share their experience on camera, but they'll gladly talk off camera. And everyone is afraid of almost being public about how they feel about the situation because they're afraid of either retaliation or being canceled for having thoughts that aren't politically correct. But
there you go. See, I don't think that guy's got an axe to grind. I don't think he has any great political mission. I don't think he's out here talking about Democrats and Republicans or anything like that. The shopkeepers know what's wrong with their economy. Shopkeepers always know because they have to know. Because if they don't know, they're not going to make their living. They're not going to be able to support their family. You see, folks, let me explain something to you. Working for a living in the private sector is completely different than working at a salaried position. And everybody needs to take a moment to remember that every single institutional salaried job in the world is a service. If you're a professor at a university, you're performing a service for students. You're a service provider. The primary part of that economy is the student. You serve the student, right? A shoe cobbler serves people who walk in shoes. Okay? The cobbler is the servant. If you work for a municipality like Santa Monica, I wonder how many, if the actual city council has reduced its size, if the city budget has reduced its size. It must get to a point in some of these dilapidating cities where the actual budget to run city council is a significant portion of the annual income taken in, because the municipalities as bureaucratic institutions were bloated out during the heyday of those economies, and there's all these like guaranteed jobs. Those are the no-lose jobs. Okay, that's another. And look, I'll be very honest with everybody here. It's my opinion that the American and Canadian economies, there's a lot of fat to trim. Probably 60-70% of the work isn't absolutely necessary. Remember, the only necessary work is food, shelter, and safety, where medicine would be a part of safety. Staying alive, basically. So security and medicine, staying alive, and then where do you stay alive? Your shelter, and then how do you stay alive? Well, you need to eat. That's it. Those are the only mandatory economies. Only everything else is cultural or something like that. It's really quite remarkable how simple an economy becomes to understand when you live the way I do in the rainforest. It's transparent, actually, to be honest. It's just absolutely transparent. There's no way you could not see it. It's transparent. So who knows what's happening with these economies, right? Like, who knows? And how much more can it go? How much worse can it get? And then you've simultaneously got the blind eye to the Chinese triads, which are an arm of the Chinese government in this instance, working with the Mexican cartels to sell drugs that kill people and don't produce repeat customers. So it's a massive domestic kill operation. The fentanyl in the United States is almost the equivalent. And don't shoot the messenger. I'm just the guy saying this, but when I say it out loud, you'll see the correlation. The fentanyl crisis in the United States is almost like the American version of medical assistance in dying in Canada. They're letting those people die. They're not doing anything to stop that fentanyl from crossing the border. Hell, I'm going to say it out loud. I don't care if I sound like a paranoid conspiracy theorist. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden and his family and elements of the Democratic Party were making a commission on every fentanyl pill sold over the border in the United States. Some way, shape, or form, they're making money, second or third hand removed. Because that's the way these parasitic, satanic economies work. Everybody gets their VIG, and the capo gets a VIG from everybody. And Washington is still the capo. Right? It's a series of interlinked organizations at this point in history immersed in criminal intent. Catholic Family Services, the NGO moving people around from the border, immersed in criminal intent. Jewish Family Services, immersed in criminal intent. Senate and Congress immersed in criminal intent. It's an inescapable conclusion. It's all criminal at this point. All criminal. Immersed in criminal intent. Yeah. All right, let's give this dude his due.
It seems though that a lot of people feel the exact same way about what's going on here. It's just they're too afraid to speak about it. So this used to be the food court. There used to be a McDonald's in here. There was a Chinese food that was really good. And then upstairs used to be a whole bunch of restaurants. And I think this closed in 2020 and it hasn't reopened since. Again, it's probably because the rent is so unbelievably high. But there is some good news in the fact that across the street it seems like Barnes & Noble is opening up. So perhaps a few of these businesses are beginning to move back to the area. So the last block of the promenade has always been the most difficult for businesses because people tend to gravitate towards that side. So this is somewhat neglected, and that's why it's hit especially hard, because you have 3 vacancies in a row on this side. Across, you have another vacancy on this side, and then a few stores down, you have 2 more empty buildings on that side, which makes it really difficult because why would you want to move your business in here when there are just empty businesses next to you? It gets a lot less foot traffic. Yeah.
Hey, hit the like and subscribe.
There we go. Thank you.
I've seen you before, bro. Have a great day.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Like and subscribe.
Thank you.
This guy's amazing.
Thank you. So you're probably wondering, what happened? Well, it's really the perfect storm. The first reason is that people are shopping a lot more online, so there's less of a reason to have a storefront out here like this. The second reason is COVID. Businesses were forced to shut down. They weren't allowed to operate, and as a result, businesses lost a lot of money and had to close. So
people don't talk about this as much as we need to talk about this. You see, one of the things that happened in our business models from about 1990 onwards is a lot of the business thinking centered around ways of doing things in the new economy, which is the digital economy, and how to capture that market. And in doing so, a lot of traditional economy was destroyed. A lot of brick and mortar economy. Okay, doesn't mean that buildings are not still being built. They are. They absolutely are. But these retail sales cut into everything. Okay? They cut into everything. I mean, I honestly believe, and I honestly believe that Amazon should be taxed at like 80%. Allowed to keep 20% of their profits, and 80% of what they make should go back into the public treasury. I honestly believe that. And this is the problem with the last great leap forward technologically, is it didn't produce anything new. There's no new shoes. There's only a new way to sell shoes. There are no new devices. We're still on tablets, cell phones, and computers, and that's been the last 30 years. There's nothing. We get new versions, but there's nothing really new there. The only new thing is how you sell them. Okay? And again, this was all done deliberately too. It's not an accident. None of this stuff is accidental. There's no way a person creates a company that does trillions of dollars in revenue accidentally. There is no way that could happen naturally. I'm sorry, folks, it's just not possible. It would not be allowed to happen. Regulators would get in there and find a way to cripple it because they would see it as too omnipotent, too omnipresent. Okay, and there's we all intuitively understand what anti-monopolistic behavior is. We don't want anyone to come to control something, because if anything happens in our relationship with that one person who controls something, we could lose access to that thing we need. So we like a diverse, as a general natural phenomenon, we like different supplies and sources of things, right? Jeff Bezos and Amazon, they come in and they're completely counterintuitive to that. They're like, we're the supply. Okay? Now, the other thing that this guy said that I found very interesting, he says everybody knows what the problem is. Nobody wants to say it on camera. Okay? And that's the merchant class. You don't want to get a bad reputation if you sell things for a living. And America is a merchant society. It sells things for a living. And that's one of the reasons it's been so easy to silence America. I better not say anything, I could get blackballed. I know they're a bunch of woke whack jobs, but they can really do a hatchet job in their media. I could end up being on a shit list and not being able to run a restaurant or a business ever again because these lunatics do a public hatchet job on me. It's not quite the literal same as the Maoist youth guard coming to your house to kill you in the middle of the night, but it's pretty damn close. If they kill your ability to make a living, they kill you. Right? Very interesting thing. Let's get back to our friend here.
I think from all the closures here, this one resonates the most with me because I used to come here as a kid in the 90s, and this used to be a Barnes & Noble. Then, my understanding is that in 2018, they doubled the rent. Barnes & Noble said they couldn't possibly sell that many books to be able to pay the rent. They left. It was then taken over by WeWork. We know how that turned out. WeWork went out of business, and since then, this building has sat empty. Now, a big problem with a lot of the real estate that's here is that the building's value is really tied to the amount of rent they receive. So if a developer decides to lower the rent, all of a sudden, if they take a lower rent, their building is worth a lot less. And then when you have one building that's worth a lot less, that acts as a comp for other buildings next to it to also be worth a lot less. So in a sense, they're almost forced to keep their rents high just to maintain their value. And in terms of how much it costs, it's very expensive. Rents here on the promenade start about $5 to $6 a square foot. And they go as high as $20 a square foot. So that means sometimes for a 1,000 square foot storefront, you could pay anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000 a month. Or if you have 3,000 square feet, even at $6 a square foot, that's $18,000 a month just in rent alone that you have to make up for with street traffic that just isn't here anymore. So really outside of any high-end restaurants or national retailers, no one could really afford what's here. The other issue is that a lot of these buildings were built in a time where a business could take over the entire store. But now we've shifted towards smaller buildings in places like...
And therein lies the question at the heart of all of this. The economic conundrum. The mystery of mysteries. The thing I cannot figure out. Why are the prices not plummeting? Why are market rules not falling into place? Why? What could possibly be the answer for this? What could this possibly be a setup for? Remember, these people are not stupid. Never for a moment believe these people are stupid. They're not. They're like computer clever. They can calculate very, very well. Calculation is their forte. Okay? Not big on revelation, but calculation is their forte. What are they doing? Why are the prices not falling? Well, here on the Talamanca Review, I'm going to give you one possible answer to the question. Because we now view economies like this as international, and they're just waiting for the foreign money to come in that can afford those leases to revitalize the area. Right? How might that work? Well, it could work like this. There could be a visa program created for entrepreneurs from China. If you invest so much money in the U.S. economy, in, let's say, retail, existing retail, we will give you U.S. citizenship, you and your family. And then they come in and they rent that place for $20,000, $30,000 a month, lose money for the first 2-3 years. But then a bunch of other people come in and redo the place, and it becomes economically viable again. Somebody has to dump money into it, or the prices need to come down. And this is the strangest thing about this economy we've created. They never allow prices to come down. Prices should have come down in 2007, 2008. Prices should be coming way down in Canada. Way down. On house prices, on everything. And maybe this is one of the reasons for the immigration as well. But a lot of the immigrants that they're bringing into Canada and the United States don't have money to buy a home. So how are they going to artificially inflate the housing market? And it's not just the retail market, folks. It's the housing market as well. The prices are artificially high. Never in the history of Canada and the United States has the average house price been a larger multiplication of annual revenue for the people looking to buy the house. Never. I don't buy into the AI nonsense. I think that's the biggest red herring out there, by the way. AI. Nonsense. But that's just me. All right, let's go back to our friend here, see what he's got to say for himself.
It's really difficult to subdivide. So what ends up happening is that you have a 3,000 square foot place for rent, and they can't chop it up into smaller storefronts. You're stuck either renting the entire thing or nothing at all. The other issue is homelessness. Right now it's reported that there's 117 homeless per 1 square mile, which is some of the highest in the country. And again, that's just what they could count. Now the thing is though, if you are homeless, I mean, look at where we are. It's one of the most beautiful places in the entire country. And that's one of the difficult parts, is because when I walk around here, it is so nice. The weather is perfect. The scenery is incredible. I mean, it's really one of a kind, and I see why people want to be here so badly and how beautiful it is. Even for me, having left, there are aspects of Santa Monica and Los Angeles that I really miss, just because it's so unbelievably gorgeous here. Now, in terms of solving the homelessness issue, California has spent so far about $24 billion since 2019. And this behind us is an example of exactly that. This used to be a parking structure that was torn down to build affordable housing for the homeless. However, the cost is through the roof. A lot of locals say that it costs way too much money at $125 million, which means every unit that's going to be built here for the homeless is going to cost about $1 million. Now, for context, if you want to buy your own condo here in Santa Monica, it's going to cost you anywhere between $1 million to $1.5 million, give or take. Or you could live here if you're homeless. The other issue is crime. Petty theft under $950 is now considered a misdemeanor, and that's really impacted a lot of businesses.
Prop 47 passed in 2014 and changed the way California handles certain crimes, making thefts of less than $950 chargeable as only misdemeanors.
I done seen people look at the store.
Why would they do that? And it's not just that they did it. I mean, that would be a ballsy move to do at the height of a liberal economy where there's so much money to experiment with, for society to experiment with. The economy is firing on all pistons, like basically the United States and Canada in the 80s and 90s. And you have a largesse and you have some money to burn. Well, you know what? We're going to experiment with the justice system because this is one of the things you can do when you become a wealthy society, is you can do experiments because you have the latitude, you have the disposable income. So, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to see what happens when we do this, when we make theft under $950 a misdemeanor. I mean, even to do it in the most robust of times would be risky. But why would you do it right at a time when those businesses need your support as a municipal leader, as a mayor, as a councillor, when you're already getting the shit beat out of you by COVID and a diminishing economy? Why would the municipality jump on specifically at this time with this woke nonsense? You tell me that this is not intentional. You look me in the eyes and you tell me that this is not intentional. There's no way this could all be a coincidence. Coincidence is a fool's game. There's no such thing. No such thing as a coincidence. It's the ultimate fool's game, a coincidence. All these things just magically line up. They told us they're going to collapse the world economy through the literal metaphor of the World Trade Towers being brought down with a controlled demolition in under 3 minutes. And we still don't get it. You're still bumping into people who can't get it. And the smarter you are in the system that's governing the world now, meaning the more years after high school you have in their education system, the higher you are in this system now, the stupider you are in natural law, in moral law, in universal law, and in survivability. That's why all these dumb people don't see it. They've deliberately blinded themselves. Remember the old story about the emperor with no clothes? They don't see it. This is the ultimate example of hubris and nemesis. Okay? Sometimes the logical consequence, the ironic mirror for an action or a persistent habit or behavior in your life is the Spirit or God will take away your ability to discern a certain thing. And I would say a lot of the discernment of these people has been taken away. Or they're thinking so completely just about their own survival, which is keep this job, keep the benefits, keep the pension. You lose this job, you're screwed. Whatever they tell you to do, you do it. If they tell you to clean the toilet with your tongue, you clean that toilet with your tongue. Because that's your rice bowl, brother, sister. That's your rice bowl. You lose that rice bowl, you go hungry. And you've driven past those blocks with the tents, those alleys with the homeless people. You know what happens to the people who lose their rice bowl, so don't lose your rice bowl. Pure fear, folks. Pure fear. The division in the United States will be profoundly urban-rural. The survivability numbers will be profoundly related to urban-rural. Who's urban, who's rural? Profoundly. This cannot be overstated at this point. Okay? It cannot be overstated. There's nowhere to naturally get food in a city if the stores aren't open or if the shelves are empty. There's no place to get food except somebody else's house. You get it? You get it? You get it? You get it? So, let's continue on with our friend here. We're going to go a bit long today. I can take a call too if anybody wants to call in. Chris, hold your horses, okay? See if somebody else wants to call in.
Owner and take it right in front of him and walk out.
It has fueled a market of petty and repeat offenses with zero to low accountability.
After that, we have the rail line, which extends all the way from downtown to Santa Monica. The concern that I've heard from some of the locals is that this rail line makes it very accessible for people to travel from Skid Row to Santa Monica, back to Skid Row, back to Santa Monica, who otherwise wouldn't be here.
Brock tells us Ali tried to steal his hat 3 times and eventually got it, shoved him, and also tossed a liquid at the couple.
turned to walk away. He took a bottle of some sort of liquid, threw it on me.
Brock says he and his girlfriend followed Ali while keeping 911 updated on his whereabouts. And when the man somehow toppled over, Brock held him down until police arrived.
And of course, we can't make a video like this without discussing drug use. It was recently found that substance abuse affects about 75% of the homeless population. This is also reflected in the fact that Santa Monica is one of the top fentanyl death hotspots in LA County. Use of these drugs, combined with 78% of the homeless population suffering from...
Okay. It's a voluntary check-in kill room. This is medical assistance in dying. This is a perfect setup. They're gathering all these people in here to kill them. Okay? I'm going to say some macabre things now. Some of you might find them unsavory. Okay? But it's real politics, and I'm going to say them anyways. If someone were to start going into those communities and finding a way to topple the people, that was relatively easy and it wouldn't set off alarms. You know, like if you just found a good poison, arsenic even, and you passed around Gatorade and every day you killed 4 or 5 people, I'll bet you dollars to donuts it would take the cops forever to find you if they ever found you. I bet you could leave your fingerprints right on the bottle. I think they want these people to die. And I see the same thing going on in Vancouver. So the next stage to this, and I don't know, I should just let the whole video play. I haven't watched the whole thing. I just watched to about where I am now before I did my show. And then I knew I wanted to do it on the show. But I'm not sure if they've legalized here in Santa Monica. But you can't get arrested for drugs in this section of Vancouver now, which has just gone to the animals, like the lowest quality human beings on the planet, right? All right, so let's find out a bit more about this.
Mental health issues is a serious contributor to violent crime incidents. I would personally say, though, as someone who grew up here, I think the nail in the coffin was the 2020 riots that happened, and a lot of these businesses were broken into, and ever since then, it just seems like they've had a really difficult time recovering from that.
So I lived in Santa Monica since 2017, and I've seen it change a lot throughout the years. Especially through the pandemic, which was one of the more interesting times, especially with all the riots and everything that are actually happening right down the street. I had 7 helicopters right above my unit, for a while. We've had people try to break into our garages. We've had our garbage situations a mess. So I have a lock on our garbage outside, just so it doesn't get crazy. And that was like something we had to do.
We've had a break-in in our place. I have a buddy who lives a couple miles that way, still in Santa Monica, that has had a break-in. These are anecdotes again, but I don't think that anyone should have a rosy picture and should just pretend that, this is the kind of neighborhood you can leave your door unlocked and then, not have to worry about anything happening. I hope we can figure it out, obviously.
I've lived here my whole life. I've grown up here. I was born in '90. I mean, it used to be a lot easier going, a lot simpler. I mean, you would never see houses go for the prices that they were. And everyone was in these kind of single level homes. And the homelessness is crazy. Like, it was never to the point where they're under every bridge, every freeway, underpass.
It's definitely deteriorated a lot where I've contemplated moving out. I do love Santa Monica.
Me too.
But I have contemplated moving out just for that reason, because it's just changed a lot. I've seen things just outside on the buildings when they shut down saying, hey, we shut down because of Santa Monica city codes. And they're like, we're still located in Hollywood if you want to come see us, but we're no longer going to be in Santa Monica.
What is Santa Monica doing about it?
I think they're just throwing money at it. You see, they do these frequent kind of clear ups, maybe once every few months, but 3 days later, maybe even less, you'll see it just the way it is, the same amount of trash, the garbage. And then there's these nebulous housing projects in downtown LA, which, you hear about them, you kind of occasionally you'll see community letters come out this is what we're doing, but it doesn't change anything. There's really no difference being made with these really insane projects. I mean, the amount of money they're throwing at this is insane. Yeah, it just seems to get more and more. as time goes on, and more homeless, more spending on it, but everything's getting worse.
I avoid the pier at all costs. I never go over there because every time it's just like very sad. And my car did get broken into
When is
recently. This was 2 months ago, I would say.
And just on the street here?
So I live in actually a really safe neighborhood, like off Wilshire. Families, like really nice homes and everything. And I was just parked right outside my apartment. And yeah, just on a random Tuesday.
Did you file a police report on that?
So I didn't actually file a police report, but I did call the police and let them know what happened. And they basically told me that unless I had footage, then there's no point of filing a report because they're not going to be able to identify who it was.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I learned this the other night, that according to these statistics, crime in Santa Monica has actually decreased. And one of the reasons why is because so many people fail to file a police report because the police either can't do anything about it or because people don't want their insurance going up. And so a lot of businesses are experiencing, for them, increased crime.
That's some straight up. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so we are now, okay, this is brilliant. We are now in the age of Soviet statistics, folks, where the statistics will lie because I got to just quickly explain two principal concepts to you. De facto reality and de jure reality. De jure reality is the literal reality. So these terms come from the law. Okay? So the de jure law is the actual literal law as it's written, and de facto law is the law as it is habitually practiced and understood by the people who live under the law. De facto. And very often the de facto is not the de jure. It's not the law the way it was written. Okay? So this is just a complete nightmare here, right? All the statistics are going to go now as well. They're all going to go someplace else. There's going to be no viable statistics to garner here. They're not going to be able to know, well, we don't have any crime in Santa Monica. Nobody's reporting crime, right? There's probably no crime in Beijing either. No reported crime. This is how societies go under, folks. And this is how precarious the time we live in now is. How dangerous it is. And what's at stake here? Okay? And the thing about the culture we've created in the first world is there's not really a fallback. There's no spiritual fallback position. So we put everything into our societies. If they become false and untrue and habitually lying to us and Stalinesque in their institutional deception, we're done. Because we don't have the family unit to fall back into. Even the Russians maintained that through the Cold War. Wasn't pretty, I'm sure. Alcoholism, wife beating, whatever you want to call it. Not uniformly, but certainly probably higher numbers than Western Europe or North America would report. But nonetheless, they kept their families together. Right? How'd they do that? So we don't have any fallback position. We're all out there on the ice like individual penguins running. That's Western civilization now. Not that there's any great social organization anywhere else. You know, there's going to come a time where yelling Allahu Akbar out loud is not going to bang the drums for that culture either. They're going to outgrow it. But we don't have any fallback position. You know, everybody's going to need people pretty soon. Real people. You're going to need people in your life. People who love you. People who know what's going on. People who know the truth. And the truth is going to become something that's absolutely necessary for everybody to hear now. That look, man, none of this stuff is random. It's all coming together as part of an organized plan. And that plan is to destroy the West. To chasten us, to make us more malleable to a new social contract with our new partners and our new partner percentages with other countries and nations. I suppose it's a natural global social evolution, nothing to be too alarmed about. But we're in the middle of a war now, so look at how Santa Monica becomes a perfect representation of that. The fentanyl deaths, the proximity to the Mexican border. Probably, he hasn't touched immigration yet. Maybe I should just finish this video and take some calls. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. There's only 2 minutes left.
But they won't report it because there's nothing the police can do, and
Interesting.
they don't want to pay more insurance. So
That's
they
very
just
interesting.
let it go under the radar.
Crime data shows that vandalism and burglaries have decreased in Santa Monica.
Businesses are closing left and right because of all this looting going on.
She says when she called police, they suggested she call the store's insurer.
The state tries to manipulate things a lot, right? I think there's a lot of rent control in this state. That doesn't seem to help anything. Because once a place is rent control, that person will never leave. So that housing will never be on the market again. I think just everything in California, it needs to pop. Just once, it's just been going up, 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 up. Every recession, we just keep going up, 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 up. And it's starting to show.
I mean, look, overall, every time I drive into Santa Monica, I love it, right? I drive in away, coming from West Hollywood or other parts of the city, and I love coming back to this little pocket. A lot of things you have to deal with is the unfortunate part about Santa Monica, and I would not wish that on someone who's like trying to have their first place here, because it's difficult, especially if you have kids. I think if I had kids, I would highly reconsider where I was living.
The weather's really nice, right? I think ask anyone, that's what they're going to say is like the main plus, is the weather's beautiful. I don't really feel like I'm in danger being myself, but I do worry if my daughter and my wife go out to like a park on their own, because there's been instances where just like, there's this wild homeless guy there, someone had to call the cops, it's a whole thing. You just don't want your kid to be exposed to that kind of stuff, and there really is no reason for them to be exposed to that. It's not acceptable.
Here's my honest feeling. If you are someone who, at night doesn't like to walk to their car alone, if you're someone that's maybe from like a small town that's really safe, where you feel comfortable going for a walk in the middle of the night, then you're gonna be in for a culture shock for sure moving here. Like, there's definitely gonna be things you're not expecting. But if you really love Southern California and you want to experience like in my opinion, coolest part of LA, this is the place to be. But if you do get scared, and rightfully so, of your safety when walking around big cities, this is some of the worst that it's going to get, so you might not want to live here,
So let me know what you guys think of this down below in the comments section. I'll do my best to read as many.
Sorry, I had to turn my mic back on there. That's Santa Monica, folks. Used to be one of the most desirable neighborhoods in America. A fabled place. Right? Fabled place. Santa Monica. Now it's just a shithole. Murdered. By drugs. By homelessness. By looting. It's interesting when you listen closely to what was said in that video. Like, a lot of the people, they focused in on the looting. They said, COVID was bad, but it was the looting in 2020. So all of Santa Monica got looted because it's so close to LA, the Skid Row people can get on a train and be out there in 15, 20 minutes and get back with their looted material. Mind-boggling. Nobody's minding the store. There's no law. So what are you paying for? Why are you paying so much tax if you can't even have law? If they can't even come up. So basically they're telling you everything in their system is broken now. Everything. Isn't that interesting that we're getting this, and it's a de facto confession, not a de jure confession. A de jure confession would bring about economic liability for the mayor's office, for the police service. They have a legal, lawful responsibility to protect you. But that is defined in their statutes and regulations, which is in itself an interesting thing. Okay, so you have to study their statutes and regulations and find out what the true nature of that contract is. But right now it's profoundly dilapidated. Non-existent, really, in a lot of ways. Non-existent. Okay, if anybody wants to call in now. I should be able to take a call. Pretty sure I can. Otherwise, I'm going to pack it in for the day. But yeah, I mean, and again, like I said, I mean, there seems to be growth where I'm living, but I sometimes wonder if the growth isn't just money coming in from somewhere else, right? It's a very strange thing, the modern economy, and how it all works and how interdependent it is. I wonder if it's valid, right? I really do sometimes. I wonder if it's valid. I would say no off the top of my head. All right, that's enough for today. I am Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review. Thanks for tuning in, folks.